Morning.
Yes.
Awesome. Oh, hi, Sarah. Nice to see you.
You too.
Hey, thanks for coming on. We'll just have a quick explanation. So I'll just briefly outline why we're having this meeting with you and I tonight. And it's all stemmed from our oral submission to Deb Hayes' petition to the Midwifery Council and all their changes that have been happening. So that happened on the 19th, is that correct?
So
The 19th of September?
we made our you and I and Deb in the Midwifery Council made all of our oral submissions on the 12th of
Oh, it
September.
was the 12th.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so now the Midwifery Council and Deb Hayes' oral submission has gone up. And for some reason, known only to themselves, because they have decided we don't need to be told why, is that our oral submission has been withheld.
Yes.
And they haven't told us why or when it's going to go up. They've just said they're not putting it up. I found the response from the petitions person really, well, I guess supercilious is the word. Just, they don't have to tell us why they're not putting it up. They can just decide not to put it up.
Yeah. We've had to really keep kind of asking and asking and asking just to find out what the process is, for these videos. And when we asked for a copy, and the first response we got back was, no, it's not up. We can't tell you when or why, and we'll let you know.
Yes, not good enough. It's not good enough. I mean, if we've made any mistakes or errors or misspoke, they need to tell us and challenge us, not silence us.
That's right. And we're also capable of, if there's a particular phrase that needs adjusting or whatever, I'm sure we can work with them. But just to cut us off altogether suggests that they actually just don't want anyone to hear. That's their first question, is that, why don't they want anyone to hear what we're saying? What is it that we've said that's so challenging? So
Yeah, so I'm really perturbed by it. And of course, I must be a conspiracy theorist extraordinaire, because I just think, yes, we were too close to home. We showed too many links into relationships, and we pointed out the flaws. And then the Midwifery Council followed us, and they sounded like complete idiots.
well, they certainly weren't prepared for the level of questioning that we had brought with the evidence that we had offered, and the same with Deb Hayes. They weren't prepared for any of those, So it's
No.
when we have, because we're going to have that interview with RCR Radio on is it Brennan's breakfast show?
Yes, on Monday, and we will read our petitions out then. So we need everyone to support us, please. Tune in to RCR Paul Brennan on Monday. Is that the 1st of October? What's the date on Monday?
It's the 30th. The Midwifery Council scope of practice that we're actually objecting to comes into effect on Tuesday, despite the fact that there's so many objections. It's not just us, but ours is the one that's being withheld. And it's happening all on Tuesday. So we're going on the radio on Monday, and we want people to listen. We want all the women in New Zealand to know about this. It's really important. It's going to affect our maternity care for a long time.
It is going to affect maternity care, and not in a good way, irrelevant of what the Scope of Practice Council say. The changes they are implementing are ridiculous. They are taking midwives off their core practice. And once again, we see Māori language te reo being used to make these changes. And us, as we at ManaWāhineKōrero, we're tired of watching this happening and being ignored. Look at the Regulatory Review Committee. They've even refused to listen to us. And And so, you know, if they're not even going to table our submissions or what we write, they have taken our words out of the public eye.
That's exactly right.
So there's no historical record that since 2021 or 22, we've been writing about this.
Yeah, that, you know,
I'm, yes, I'm at a loss as to how they can just decide not to make these public when it's in the public's interest.
yes, without explanation, you know, without offering us any opportunity to discuss, or it's
Hey,
you know what, from the the whole scope of practice is written with the council's stated intention is to provide health benefits for wahine Māori and Pipi, you know, as a group, and this is why they say they're putting the language out, you know, te reo Māori in the scope, but that's not what we're objecting to their interpretation of that and saying that that's not going to work. And the public record, when they say that they're not going to consider our complaint, or they say that they're not going to upload our oral submission, and we have only one working link for the one written document they've permitted us to send, what that effectively does is it means that nobody reading this record is ever going to know that we objected. The public
no,
find out, you know, unless they frequent our website or our Substack, but that's a matter of chance. It's not acceptable.
it isn't acceptable. We're the only Māori group speaking against this Wokanese stuff coming in everywhere. We're the only Māori group, and they choose not to platform us. They have decided that for whatever reasons that it's not in the public interest. So there is no historical record of 2 years' work.
Yeah, and 2 years worth of really serious, sustained, you know, strenuous objections about what they're saying. It's the parliamentary website, and the reason that they are supposed to make all of these submissions public is for transparency, so that the public can actually determine what they want. And if they can't hear all of the argument, and it seems very by design, you know, from looking at it, that we're the one group they do not want to hear from, because we're the one group that's saying, you know, this use of te reo in the scope is damaging to us, and they don't want to know.
No, they just want to go ahead full tilt boogie and use it any way they see fit. And I'll just, for the record, I'd like to reiterate that whānau does not mean mother and baby. And kahu pōkai does not mean midwife.
That's right.
You cannot get mother, baby, and midwife out of these words that they are using. And we're well within our rights as being the only Māori group to object to this and to have our objections publicly known.
Yes.
I don't know what game they're playing, but from where I sit, it's not very good. And so, you know, tune into RCR on Monday if you want to hear what we said. That's just too damaging to put up.
Yeah.
You know, and like from memory, Sarah, like we just laid out and asked a whole lot of questions about the relationships of the people that have worked on the scope. And it's worth noting at this time as well that the council have changed their panel.
Yes. All of a sudden, you
Yes.
know, whether like they do this, they have a the council have, every member of the council has a term that they fulfill, and then they replace them as their terms expire. But they've just done 6 new members, which is more, I think it's more than half of the total.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're still learning about who they are.
Yes, well, I want to know, like, I object to men being on this panel and being recorded as consumers. I object to people's husbands gifting names. With that, like I really object to this. This is, for want of a better word, it's nepotism.
Yeah, it's there certainly seems to be some inappropriate relationships going on that have conflicts of interest and muddy the waters between what about who's actually directing the scope. Is it actually the Midwifery Council, or is it another group with an agenda that doesn't really have anything to do with women and babies?
Yes, well, I know what we think.
Well, but exactly, this is why it's so important that our oral submission and all of our work isn't being taken seriously, because ultimately it's not like, of course we want to ask these questions, but what we really want is the government to ask these questions because they're serious questions.
There's serious questions, and serious money's been spent on their journey in their three-sided house.
It's as we in our first feedback submission to them, we said, look, 17 people in a picture of a whare do not an iwi make. This is not sufficient consultation,
Not when there's 103 recognised iwi in New Zealand. This concerns all women in New Zealand. What about the woman that can't speak Māori?
Yeah, we
And, we object to it very strongly. So calling woman and baby, the mother and baby, which is the core business of midwifery through the centuries, I might add, and calling them whānau, does that mean that the people in the room with the mother can dictate the care?
Well, as far as I can, when I read it, and certainly this is the complaint from midwives, is that the way that the scope is currently worded allows for that. It makes it too vague. The midwife has no clear direction about who's actually in charge and who she's supposed to care for.
And isn't that, I find that very odd, because training in the humanities, whether it's social work or, counselling or any of them, is, one of the core questions is, who is your client?
Yeah.
And you have to have clear boundaries around who your client is. And the Midwifery Council have completely just turned it all on its head. And now midwives' clients, the whole whānau, Bob next door who's come in to get a bloody cup of sugar, could be the neighbours who have come in because they know, well, something's happening. It could just be anyone. There's, whānau. Who's the whānau for women in prison? These are some huge questions that need answering. They need the government to ask these questions and not to just throw our submissions, because it's not just this one, we're discussing this one in particular, because it hasn't gone up, when generally, as a general rule, oral submissions go up the day they're made.
Yeah,
just generally. But so they've put the midwives one up, they've put Deb Hayes one up, but they're withholding our submission. And, we're not happy about that. We are making inquiries about it. I find it totally bizarre. I thought submissions were public information and a public record, there to be in the public's eye.
Well, certainly, if you want to make a submission on, if you want to make a submission on a petition and you want that submission to be kept private or secret from the public, you have to go through quite the process to make that happen. You have to have very serious reasons to withhold the information from the public. So the rules for us are quite strict, but the rules for them are, well, we can just say no and we don't have to tell you why.
Yes, well, that's how it seems to me. So what is the date on Monday?
So the date on Monday will be the 30th of September.
30th. So the 30th of September
Monday
is when we're appearing, on the Paul Brennan Breakfast Show.
Yeah.
So we really urge you to let every woman know to tune in.
Yeah.
Let everybody know, because we're going to read out our submission, the one they won't put up, that we went and did, like, Sarah, you were on Zoom and I was in person. you know, so and hours went into writing our submission. It's not just something you pluck out of your ear hole. A
No.
lot of preparation goes in, a lot of reading goes in, a lot of work goes into submissions. And for them to decline to put it up without saying why or what rules we've broken or anything like that, I find totally bizarre, heavy-handed, and it doesn't bode well.
It definitely doesn't bode well. I I really hope that everyone who, basically anyone with a woman in their life um is going to try and tune into this, so that, because we'll go through it in a bit more detail, and of course, there'll be questions and things like that as well. So
Yes.
yeah.
There's a lot of questions around the relationships, around the scope of practice, and outside influence,
Yes.
and
Inappropriate
who come in.
and cost.
Yes, and the costs. And while all this has happened, remember, maternal and baby death stats have not changed.
That's right. It's still
So they've spent,
one
yeah.
women every year and 650 babies die either in childbirth or shortly thereafter for the last 15 years.
And they're still the same, yet they've spent, I'd hazard a guess at 500,000 by now, with all these committees and gifts and subcommittees and then other committees and then more gifts.
Yeah, well, when we
But
add together the cost of, $377,000 that we know they got from the Midwifery Council got, and the $180,000 that the Trans Pregnancy Care Project got, which is doing the same job, it's embedding
yeah,
these ideas into midwifery. That's their purpose. That's already over $500,000 that the public purse has spent on these ideas that nobody knows about, or not enough people know about, and or haven't had an opportunity to contribute to.
well, I'm not surprised. Like there were only 3 of us that submitted that day.
Mm.
Only 3 people were permitted to submit.
Mm. Mm.
Or 3 groups, 3 people,
Yeah.
and of the 3, one of them was the council itself with their mealy-mouthed answers. Because they omit, they tell lies by omission,
Mm.
and they do a lot of double speak, Like, men don't get pregnant. I don't care how you identify. If you're a woman who thinks she's a man having a baby, you're still a bloody woman. I
Mm.
don't give a rat's ass for your gender identity. Only women give birth, women bring forth life, and ManaWāhineKōrero are not going to stand for this rubbish, and we will keep pushing back against it, no matter how many times they suppress our voice. We are not going to shut up, because it is wrong. It is against everything in Te Ao, everything.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
completely.
Yeah.
Yes. And like, until this rainbow madness took over the Western world, it was completely against everything in the Western world as well. I mean, look at the panel they put on the committee. Initially, it was 4 men. And then the one woman they did put in there was someone that sweats with pride.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but I just that name,
Well, it's hilarious. That's how ridiculous it is. So the one woman sweats with pride. How proud she going to be when this turns and she realizes she was part of sterilizing all these children? Is she still going to sweat with pride then, or just sweat?
Just sweat, I think. Amen.
Yeah, So how's that for stacking the board? We had Mr. Climate Change fella.
Yeah.
Who was at one stage laughing, and he wasn't even a Kiwi man. I don't even know if he's a father, but he was so disinterested. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't have matchsticks in his eyes to keep himself awake.
I couldn't see them because I was so nervous, doing the submission. So my screen was kind of blurry. All I could see was
yeah.
But,
I think irrelevant of what the submission is, if The public have taken the time to do this. The least the politicians can do is show some respect. They should have learned that through the self-sex ID and the conversion therapy, because they were absolutely vile through that.
Yeah.
Most of them were sitting there slurping their drinks, eating their breakfast on their phones, knitting, doing all sorts of stuff that isn't relevant to the submission. You know, the politicians are getting a bit big for their boots, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, we're
We
citizens.
are, we're citizens, that's right, Sarah. We're not your serfs. You haven't got a fiefdom.
No, it's not, we're not actual lords or it's
Yeah,
not a feudal system, and we're not going cap in hand to ask for a boon. We're following a parliamentary process that we're entitled to participate in because we've got questions and we want the government to answer them about a really important topic. And it really doesn't matter what it is. If we'd gone there and threatened to burn the place down, sure, don't put our submission up. But that's not what we did. We said, good morning, these are our questions.
yes. And then got accused of making accusations. They're questions, just in anything, this is the heavy hand of the big machine coming down, of the gender Borg, is my opinion. And it's very much looking like that. When we have spent 2 years writing about this and it isn't in the public record, serious questions need to be asked. We have the right for this to be a historical note.
Yes, and it's not that we're pretending that we speak for everybody. What we're asking for is for an opportunity for everybody to contribute. We want people to hear and understand and draw their own conclusions, not for the Midwifery Council to go, well, this is the way it is, and people to go, wait, what? No, and it's too late.
Well, that's exactly what's happened. We're going to be on the radio or RCR Paul Brennan Monday. I don't know what time, I can't remember. And then Tuesday, all these midwifery scope of practice are law. They are in. And so midwives now have to be midwives and social workers.
Yes, and social workers with a very vague job description.
How dangerous. How
So,
dangerous.
and could you really mess with a more fundamental area of health than a 9-month pregnancy experience and life-changing journey with your baby at the end of it? It's like the fundamental building block of society. You can't just go, oh well, we're going to change that altogether, and it's not really about women anymore. It's about the whole whānau. And
about the whole whānau, so we can incorporate the mentally ill, delusional, these women who cut their breasts off and then decide to have a baby are not tightly wrapped.
no,
Let me say that.
And midwives are capable of managing that situation without having to change the language of maternity care and midwifery and paint all of the buildings Soviet grey,
Yes, yes. Why should women lose our language for the privileged few? Because we really object to it, and quite strongly actually. But yeah, so awesome, Sarah. I look forward to our interview on Monday and reading out our submission so the public can hear it. And then we're going to be putting this video out wherever we can. Please tune in on Monday, even write to the petitions committee.
Yes, write to them.
Write to them, ask for our video to be put up, or ask for reasons why it hasn't been put up. We've done nothing wrong, and they've decided that we have when we haven't.
Yes.
I think my personal opinion was Deb's Hayes was a fantastic submission, and then it was ours, and then the Midwifery Council come on speaking double Dutch they were just speaking Wokanese, they weren't clear, they weren't organised, and to be frank, they sounded like idiots. But what they also sounded like was arrogant, because they know it's a done deal. This is already going into law by Tuesday. 90% of people said, cut it out, we don't like it, and
Yeah.
they're just full steam ahead, not listening.
Yes, that's right, mate. You know, like it's watching them in the video submission afterwards, after we'd done our submission, and their confidence and lack of preparedness. It says a lot about how you know, they're engaging in this process in a tokenistic way. They have to do it as a sort of face-saving thing, but it's not. We could, you know, we're putting all this work and making sure every word is perfect and researching everything just to make sure, you know, dot all the I's and cross all the T's,
Yes.
all of this, you know, and their submission is 90% the feedback report that says everybody hates it, and that's the best they've got, you know. Oh, and we did this to be inclusive. Well, we know that. You know, that's not a satisfactory answer.
No, it isn't satisfactory. So we want some answers. We have wound it up and gone in and asked for help on why this is happening within Parliament. But it isn't good enough. If they can just decide it's like we didn't swear, we weren't rude, and we were asking questions and showing tie-ins of relationships.
Yeah.
So I don't see any reason why our submission cannot go up.
Same. And if there is one, you know, we'd love to know what it is, and if we can work around it, and other, you know, but I mean, at this point, we're going to upload ours anyway, because this is
Yes.
important to be messing around.
It's so important. It's so important. I mean, even Rex's one calling Ginny a fucking disgrace went up.
Yeah, well, that's right. So what is it, you know, that we've said
What is it?
is
What is
scary
it?
people, you know, who is it that they're
Mm.
protecting, and why, and how much money has gone into this?
Yes, so tune in Monday morning,
Yes.
RCR with Paul Brennan. And
Yes.
if you want to hear our submission, because that's really the only place you're going to hear it, because I don't think they're going to put it up.
Well, not until they're thinking everybody's forgotten, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So shall we end it there?
Yeah, let's end it there, and we hope to see everybody on Monday morning. And tell
Yes,
your friends, and tell your mum, tell your daughter, tell your auntie, tell your sister, you know, tell them.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. And like I say, men, stand up for your woman,
yeah,
your mothers, your wives, your sisters, your nieces, your daughters. You know, this is about them, and gosh, if we can't even get something put in the public record, wow, that doesn't bode. I'll say it again, it doesn't bode good. But yeah, tune in Monday morning, RCR with Paul Brennan.
we'll be there.
I will be there reading our submission for the public. Awesome, Sarah.
Talk soon.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Bye.
All right. Good night, Sarah. Por Maria.
Bye.